Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Destiny of Your Soul podcast live stream. If you're joining us today, if you're listening later, then it is a podcast, no doubt. My name is Carl Spreedies. I'm the author of Decide Your Destiny and the custodian of the Decide Your Destiny movement. And we've also got Angela Talent, Poems from a Lost Soul. How are you, Angela?
I am good. We had more rain yesterday, so there were clouds this morning, but there is blue sky and sunshine outside right now, which I am
Ooh.
super happy about.
I'm glad to hear. Look, all I can report on the weather report from Perth is blue sky and sunshine. It's pretty much the same thing every single day. It doesn't change.
But it's
It's
your
almost
summer,
like,
right?
well, yeah. But I mean, I'm from Sydney, and even Sydney seems to have a bit more of a diverse sort of weather. But uh, Perth, apparently, I think I've already said this. People probably get sick of it, but Perth's the sunniest capital in the world, apparently. If you look it up, or one of the sunniest. It does get windy. I guess that's one thing. But it just, yeah, it's almost seems like a matrix because you don't ever see a cloud. Like it's just the same thing every day. And then all of a sudden you see a cloud, you're like, whoa, there's a there's a glitch in the
Some
matrix, guys.
You can have awe and wonder over one cloud. That's really beautiful, though.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. In Sydney, you get thunderstorms, and you get something different. But I don't know. It's hard to complain about that, because you could be in other areas of the world where it's just very, very, very cold. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna, some of my friends would say it's not cold where I am, but it's cold where they are.
yes, yeah. There's cold, and there's I guess there's like Canada cold.
Yeah, yeah, or Alaska cold, or anyway. And
Yes.
I mean, but we could find our way, to put a pun on things, to wherever we need to go, right? Like, how do we find our way, like weather-wise? Um, if I needed more sun, I could just know that I need to find my way to Perth.
Yeah. Yep.
Since the title of our show today is how to find your way.
Yeah. And look, your way may not be where you were born, where you grew up. There's an unusual statistic of people who have been quite successful in their life, who left their hometown, and they say it's like a little bit of a life hack to be successful is to leave your hometown. And I think it's a similar thing that I've heard, like people say, hey, um, if you're earning money, like find like investments to put that money in, or find places to put that money, or lock it away. Like don't have it sitting around. And I've definitely noticed this with money. There's like no more dangerous place than a little bit of money, because you get a little bit of money and then your mind goes, yeah, like good. And I like, I've been running my business for 6 years. So no, sorry, longer than 6 years. But I've been running my business, and my business is project to project. So if you sit around and chill too long, you know, there's nothing in the pipeline coming down. So you kick yourself. You're like, wait a minute, why is this month not as great as the previous month? What's going on? Oh, that's right. Previous month was really good, and I thought I was just, happy Larry. I could just sit around and just chill. So I think it's similar thing with money. When you actually move out of your hometown, you don't have those comforts. You don't have, oh, dad will get me a job, or so and so, I can work at so and so's mechanic, or whatever it is. You
Mhm.
you have to actually find your way. Like you have to actually figure it out. And this the if you guys are just joining us for the first time, you haven't been following the show. Basically, the combination of Angela and myself has been we've both written a book. Angela's written Poems from a Lost Soul. Incredible poems, really, really incredible, touching poems. And, I'm Got to say, poems are another way of writing that I really really respect a lot. Um, and I've written Decide Your Destiny, and we decided, because there were 22 chapters in my book, to follow the book chapter by chapter, and then that would leave us with 22 episodes. And so today's episode was Purpose Wayfinder, and the essence of the Purpose Wayfinder, a big part of the exercise, and we always finish every episode of exercise, was a list of questions. And the point of the questions is to, a wayfinder. It's almost like a flight path, or if you want to see it more specifically, watch one of the latest Star Wars movies, and Rey has to use a wayfinder to find Emperor Palpatine, and the wayfinder pins your your information, pins where you're going, and so it's really important that we find our own purpose wayfinder. For instance, if you're struggling to get up in the morning, one of the things I say in the book is put an appointment early in the morning. It's 6 a.m. here in Perth, and I've got a 7 a.m. And so I thought, and we usually run this meeting 7 a.m. But for me to want to get up at 5 in the morning, I've got a 6 a.m. I've got a reason to get up, and that's really what your purpose is. It's like, you got to have a reason. You got to have something that's driving you, something that's, hey, and unfortunately, I don't know what the psychology is behind it, but a lot of us need more reasons than just us. We need to show up for our tribe. We need to show up for our community. We need to show up for other people. But then we can't just show up for other people. We also got to show up for ourselves. If we're not filling our own cup up, then it's very hard for us to go out there and start dictating, or it's very hard to go out there and show up for other people. And
Yeah.
so that's an important caveat.
Yeah, and I think too that what you're really talking about is having that purpose from your values. Like, what do you really value? And sometimes working at that backwards. Like last week's homework was to look at what you enjoy doing, and then putting it in a circle, and then putting lines out and more circles, and just keep going, keep going, keep going. Because I think sometimes we have to go backwards or forwards depending how you look at it, right? So for you, it was putting photography in the center. For me, it would be, I would go the other way and be like, well, I want to share love, whatever that looks like. How do I make sure that, or how do I share with other people that they're not alone, that they have value, all of those things. So then I have to go the other way and be like, okay, well, what does that look like, right? So I think it just depends, but bottom line is, I think those values are so important when it comes to finding your purpose and finding your way and what that means, like, because as soon as you seem to have those values and you have them, you know exactly what you want to do with them, it makes choices easier.
Yeah, it clarifies the decision-making process.
It just wait less, okay, I don't know, you guys have McDonald's there, right?
Yeah, we do, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's all good. Hey, if you want to go to McDonald's, you got to go to McDonald's. But yeah.
Okay.
No.
They have so much on their menu, right? So
Yeah.
they have quite a bit on their menu. But we have these places out here in California. There's Cane's Chicken, and then there's also
Wow.
In-N-Out Burger. And
Yeah.
both of those
Why couldn't we get
restaurants.
In-N-Out Burger? I just don't get it. Anyway, keep going.
Have
I'm
you
so
had
curious.
In-N-Out? Have you been here and had In-N-Out?
No, I really want to have it, but all we get is your McDonald's.
In-N-Out is fantastic. But one of the things that makes, like, I think one of the reasons they have this super long line is because it's really easy to go and make a decision. I'm going to have a burger. You can get a burger, and there are a few different ways you can get the burger. And then if you want, you can get fries and a shake or a drink. But it's a very limited choice. You're limited in choice. And I think that's what happens when you're driven by values, is like, well, you don't even have to worry about certain choices because they're just gone. Like,
Yes.
nope, there's no way I'm going that way. I have to go this way because this is my value and this is what I stand for.
Yes. Yeah. I remember someone explaining this in terms of the business model behind that, and the fact that you've got that there are, you know what you're going in for, um, and I think sometimes that predictability helps you to not to go in, because if you go, oh my god, there's so many different choices, then I guess then you go in for curiosity. Um, I think that sort of moving to a different town, uh, it kind of, it's another thing that limits your choices. What am I going to do with my time? Am I going to go drink with my buddies and do drugs with my buddies and have mischief? And am I going to go just uh, put a tent up and these things like going camping, all those things, like, nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, you've got lots of options in your hometown because I can just move back in. Yeah, I can live with, and not judging anyone. But what I'm saying is, there's no, like you said, there's no canceling of your choices. And I remember this quote: "Restriction is the freedom of action." And I was like, wow, that's interesting. It's just, if you restrict options or choices or ways out, then then you've got to go and do it. Like, if I restrict the fact that, okay, no matter what time I had to go to sleep, I've got to get up at this time, eventually it's going to go, all right, I need to go to sleep early, I need to go to sleep early, I need to go to sleep earlier, so it allows you to act forthrightly with your principles and the way you want to go, because you're restricting the other way. And I think the fact, that we're spiritual beings, we've got this force within us and we have to move it one way or the other. I'm not a believer in, like, we can just be mute, or we can just, like, sit in nothingness. There's so much energy and passions and emotions and fire that is swirling within us, and if we've got to move it a certain way. And if we don't restrict the things that aren't great, or move it towards a greater direction, then it can go into those sort of things that aren't the best for our destiny, aren't the best for our soul, aren't the best for setting us up. So that's where restriction, freedom of action. Going to a new town, man, I need to find a job, man, I need to meet some good people, man, I need to meet some really good people that are doing great things with their life, because I need to survive, like, rather
Yeah.
than, oh yeah, I could just go to go with my friends that aren't really doing anything, that 10 years on are still drinking out of their minds. Like, sometimes it's important to do that. We've got
Yeah.
Bobby Cobb.
Yep. Let's see. It says, I think it also helps be very focused in case of In-N-Out Burger. Someone said
Burger
deciding was
decisions can
cutting.
be hard.
I know. That's true. It's true. And then he also says, someone said deciding was cutting off other sometimes overwhelming decisions. I think that is also true. Thanks, Bobby, for sharing that. And then there's another comment here that says there is power in focus. And I think that is true. When you focus down to those values, and then it just makes it easier. Bobby knows Fred, and they're friends, and I think it's Fred, and maybe he heard it from Bobby, I don't know. But he talks about, when you decide, like homicide is final, and a decision, when you decide, there's it's final. That's what you're doing, so that
It's a cutting.
reminds me
Yeah.
of that. Yeah, like a cutting away.
Yeah, it's like a slice. Like, think of like a slice into something. Cutting off a piece of butter or bread or cake. You've made that. You made that cut. There's no going back to that. It's like deciding
Yeah.
to move on from a situation. I was just loving hearing you say Bobby and Freddie, because I'm like, we don't have these names so much in Australia. I'm like, yeah, wherever the story goes, there's a Bobby and there's a Freddie. Like,
It's
but in
fantastic.
Australia,
Yeah.
Australia would be like, there's a Dave and a Gary. Dave and Dave and Gary went down to the service station. We call it a servo.
Oh my goodness, I'm like out of the loop.
Okay, so everything in Australia, like it ends in an O, and we want to abbreviate it. So like we want to shorten everything. So talk about decision making process, right? Like
Okay.
with In-N-Out Burger, like you're talking about, like how do we? We've got so many decisions to make in our life. So Aussies are exceptional at doing this because they're like, mate, let's keep it short. So instead of Angela, they'd call you Ange.
Uh-huh.
Kyle, they might call me K-Man. Like, even though it's the same amount of words, but it's here we go. What did Bobby say? Cobber. Yeah, there we go.
Bobby's got a nickname, and I'm told my nickname is Cobber.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you, I do not know what it means in Australia, but it just sounds very Australian, like, because like they will find something in your name, and like, yeah, it's kind of they want to give, it's like a facelift to a name, they either want to shorten it or they want to end it in O or R, like sometimes I'll get called Kylo. Hey, Kylo. Kangaroo. Yeah. Here we go. The Aussieisms are gonna be popping through.
Well, when we decide, we decidedly make things shorter usually, right?
Yeah.
And that was Jan saying kangaroo to Roo.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we didn't credit the wrong person there.
Thank you, Jan. And it's actually,
by the way, hi guys.
Yes, hello everybody. So Aussies will either shorten things or they'll add like Bobby Cobber, like so we'll either add things or shorten them, so I don't think there's an in and out psychology to a lot of it, but we want to add things to make it more colorful, I think. So
maybe more creativity. But in your book, you say the very first sentence of this chapter says you have to find your truest purpose in life, whatever it is, whatever it takes. What does that mean, whatever it takes? Now, I've read the book, so I have an idea of what you mean by it, but I'm sure our listeners who are following along might like to hear a little more about your feelings on whatever it takes.
I think so. What I was speaking about in the book is very similar to what I was just talking about then, is if you don't find a place for that energy, if you don't find a direction, if you don't find good people around you, if you don't find good places to put your conviction, you'll soon enough find other places. And I look at my life, and I could have easily gone down a path where I would have been rather than trying to help, no matter how messed or upside down or backwards the world gets, I wouldn't have trying to do my part to help. I would have maybe been a part of the destruction. So, and so, on one side, I can kind of, I'm not making it right or okay that there's people out there, tearing the planet apart or tearing people apart or being mean and evil. But I can see the trajectory on how you can get caught up in that situation. And if you don't have a strong purpose for the other, if you don't have a strong purpose in anything you do, strong purpose to make sure your business works, make sure your relationship works, make sure you actually are a father, and a father not just saying, I am here, but are you really here? Are you really there for kids? And same thing for a mother. Are you really here? Are you really a mother? Or are you just doing chores? Or are you just fulfilling obligations? Are you actually there? And so I think that's a really important factor. Like whatever it takes, like that purpose is going to keep you there's going to be days for sure. There's going to be days where you're like, hey, can I just drop these kids off here and come back in a week or so? Like, you know, I would not, you know, there's going to be days where you struggle, but it's so important. Here we go. Got another comment. The comments are flying in today.
Yeah, absolutely. Surrounding yourself with good people and good energies helps keep you aligned with your purpose. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And if you're unable to find your purpose and you're struggling in finding your purpose, and thank you, Facebook user, not sure who you are, but we're glad you're here. You know, one of the things that
Welcome,
Kyle
one more.
talks that's right. One of the things Cal talks about in his book is getting someone who's not attached to the outcome to lend a perspective also provides a deeper level of clarity amongst the noise and distractions between true and false purposes to do your destiny's due diligence. So another quote from you, Kyle. But you know,
you're quoting
like,
me today.
I know twice already. Jeez,
I always get nervous when you quote me. I'm like, God, gosh, what did I say in that chapter? Like...
No, but it's true. Sometimes, you know, for me, I need to go ask questions. I need to investigate. I need to be curious. But, you know, I actually had someone else interview me for an interview. I was given the questions for this interview, and I went and had someone else interview me because I need to dictate what's going on back to the other person. And anyway, long story short, I was like, well, geez, I need to kind of work through this a little bit. But, you know, in a conversation, it's a little different than, you know, putting it on the paper. An interview is like, I love the interview. I do. I love interviewing people. I love being interviewed. It's a lot of fun. And yet it was just different with the paper. So I had to go in and get another perspective and have someone else ask me questions. And then they were pointing things out to me as well. They're like, well, what about this? You know, you didn't talk about this, but from my perspective, that's really important. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that's a good point. You know, I have to think about those things.
And sometimes those questions, like, I like interviews where I don't know the questions, or I don't know what's going to come up, because it really does get your stream of thought, you know, to just kind of like, well, what do I truly think about this? Or what, you know, how would I put that in perspective? And I think sometimes, you know, that's what I really do enjoy about podcasts is, you know, it's so staged and photoshopped and edited. And I think maybe why podcasts have just grown and grown, especially through 2020 when everybody was just, well, not everybody, I wasn't, but lots of people were at the edge of their seats waiting for the next news update. You know, what are we going to get told? Well, you know, can you please tell me, please regulate my emotion for the day, you know, like feed me. So like, I think it's been such a hammering, and it's so staged, and
So
seemingly not very real, where podcast is like, oh, you know, what's your stream of consciousness? Or, you know, like what, oh, what do you think about that? Oh, let's spend 20 minutes diving into that, you know, rather than a snippet. Because there's a great photo where it's like someone holding a microphone and then someone else in the background looking. I think it makes one person look bad, and it's like it's a tight frame. And you come out further and you see that the other person is actually the assailant, the assaulter, the attacker, and then the other person is the victim. So the tighter frame makes the one person look like the victim, and then you expand out, and it's just like a drawing, but it's drawn really well. And you expand out, and then the other frame actually shows you that the person that's pretending to be the victim is actually the one who's assaulting the other person. And I think it's like such a great example of getting information in snippets, getting little clips. You know, there's lots of little, like even today, there's lots of little clips of news or information and things that are very staged. You know, like and you got to ask, like, wait a minute, how did this suddenly happen? And all of a sudden, there's, you know, like 50 reporters just there? Like, were they just in their cars, like waiting for this moment to happen, and suddenly they were just there? So I think a lot of the world, and then you see like there's a video of it, like behind the scenes, and you see that it's like a staged report. Whether that's right or wrong, maybe like they are showing, hey, it goes back to my father was in Sri Lanka during the 2005 tsunami, and where he was, the people, instead of fixing it up and moving scraps and trying to repair and build, and I don't know, maybe even look for people, they said, we're not touching a thing, you're not touching a thing, we want the government to come here and see how bad it is. So they wanted the government to see how bad it is to be able to obviously send support, but they weren't going to do anything until that time. So, like, there's a lot of things that maybe, okay, so maybe you want to stage it, to add more drama, but there's like a blur for me between reporting and drama, TV show, movies, and things like that, when you can tweak the way you report it, and it's not authentic journalism, it's more opinion making. It's not about this actually happened, it's about this is my opinion, share the same opinion. So for me, I think podcasts alleviate that compression and that pressure and that almost like parental attitude of nations and governments and media outlets and social media outlets that are like, do this, do that. This is the appropriate way. That's the appropriate way. Be like this. Where podcast is like, hey, this is my stream of consciousness. This is what I'm talking about. This is my thought today. Hey, it might change tomorrow, but luckily enough, we're just discussing it, and there's not going to be a witch hunt after me. So the social world has changed very much over the years. I can see, and I think maybe more and more people are getting sick of the fake, getting sick of the staged little snippet of information, and that's what I really think podcast is a place to kind of bring back the real and the authentic, and I made a mistake on that podcast or that interview. I really wanted to say this, but I said that. Hey, guess what? You're human, and it's good to show other humans that you're human, because then they feel human too, and they can go, I didn't have to have a polished, hi, this is Kyle, and I'm with the Destiny of Your Soul nightly segment.
I had no idea you had such a radio voice.
Oh, my grandparents used to watch it and listen to it all the time. It drove me mad.
That's funny. Well, no, I'm just thinking as you're talking about, you really were pointing to authenticity and being okay with saying the wrong thing and things like that. And I think that those are things that people have to think about as they find their way. Can they be authentic? Can they and when I say authentic, I mean just be 100% who they are in that moment, and be okay with not doing it right. Maybe, I don't know, maybe for someone else authenticity is not high on their scale and they want everything to look polished. Okay, that's cool, that's where you're at, that's totally fine. And so I think that that's another point too, is finding your way is not going to look like Angela's way, and it's not going to look like Kyle's way, and it's not going to look like my kid's way. It's going to very much be your way, and you are the only you that exists on this planet. And I think I said this last week, but there are worlds, I use this quote and I love it because I came up with it, but there are worlds beyond number right here on Earth, which means that my world is based on my interpretations, my beliefs, my perceptions, my everything, which means that even though my kids have grown up with me, my siblings have known me, they still very well may have different beliefs than I do. And if I'm not checking in with them daily, they're having experiences that I'm not even there for. So I have to remember their purpose, their values, their standards could be totally different than me. And at least for me, my value, like I said earlier in the podcast, is to love. And so how am I going to unconditionally love the people around me so that they know I love them and it's okay to be different than me?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying there, and I love that quote. Can you give us that quote again?
Oh, there are worlds beyond number right here on Earth.
Yeah, yeah, and I think talking about finding your way and purpose, and I'm hoping we're going to drop some poems very shortly.
Yep.
Uh, but because I'm really keen to hear them. I think with your purpose, a big part of it, and I think this is where people that have had near-death experiences or have been confronted by or tainted by the rough brushstroke of life. I guess everyone has to a certain extent, um, but only a few people really get it. You know, and for me, it knocked in. There were a few knocks. You know, like I was like, whoa, like very early on as a kid, having close people around me, people that I looked up to as a brother, you know, murdered in South Africa, like having family, like my older cousin was like my older brother, you know, and having these experiences, it kept. And I remember he lived his life. He was expressive. He was who he was. He wasn't edited. He wasn't. I don't even think political correctness was a phrase back then. He wasn't sucking the fun out of everything because he was offended by absolutely everything. You know, he was living and expressing, and and it kind of hit me at a young age, going, "Wow, like you know, it's my obligation to live like a lane, to live freely, to express myself, to be bountiful like he was, not be edited, limited, um, and cut up and chopped up and put into segments. And I think, look, there's different beliefs, but I think when we all share a human heart, and if we see, you know, whether it's someone on the cameras or someone in our community, and they're an older man and they're being a bit suspect around younger kids, like we all have that kind of reaction because we know what's right and wrong. This doesn't quite look right. This is a bit too close. This is a bit too. There's something wrong here. And so I think, like, even though we're different, we all share that human heart. We know right from wrong. We know when we're being, well, hopefully we know when we've been fooled and toyed, and maybe more and more we'll get that. And that's the dichotomy of the digital world, is that it can be the transparency age where information comes, where there's the staged report, but behind the scenes there's a phone that kind of captures the whole stage. So you've seen the stage report from the main cameras, that are edited and want to show a certain circumstance, and then you see in the phone behind the scenes that shows a different thing, which makes it look less like a news report and more like a movie set. So I think that is coming to the fore more and more. But if you are fearful of, I think if you don't have spiritual beliefs, if you don't have higher beliefs, if you don't have, you don't realize, hey, like, I want to make my life worth something this time, then I think you'll more likely be the person that goes when some crap went down, when something seriously suspect went down, when something immoral went down, and the enforcers are coming around and saying, "Did you see that?" You'll be like, "No, I didn't see that." And that's where you hear, like, the book Ordinary Men, and like, you look at Europe and Germany and Russia, and these countries during those and China, these countries during those times of like one powerful leader getting masses to do one thing one way or the other. It comes from that kind of, also, look, we can't say that, oh, look, I would have done something different. We got no idea. We weren't in the environment. But if you can remain to your authenticity, if you can remain, hey, I've got to find the light out of this marching towards darkness. I need to find, I need to do it because of my faith. I need to do it because I'm not fearful of the authorities, or the current leaders that are like leading us towards a mass atrocities that we've seen in the world. And I'm sure in those countries during those times, during the 1940s, there were people that were against it and trying to, like, there were people that were smuggling people out of the country so they could be safe. There were people that were hiding people. There were people that were doing things that was against, but they knew they were doing the right thing. And so I think that's really where authenticity is tested. Like, will you stay authentic when it's not easy? It's like the same thing with your purpose. It's the same thing with your destiny. Will you stay the course when it gets windy, when it gets rocky, when the seas start to chop? And I think that's the important thing to really work out within yourself is, hey, is my spiritual obligation, is my belief that, hey, I'm not just this physical makeup, I'm also a spiritual soul. And the authenticity, the integrity, the ethics of that is the most important thing. And if I compromise that because of a certain authority or a certain leader or a certain current movement or wave, then is that, like, what is that going to do? What is that going to affect for eternity? And that's the kind of trick that a lot of oppressive states, I guess, wouldn't have an answer for in those situations. Because if you went, okay, we're going to exterminate all these people, but then you've got lots of people hiding people, and we're going to exterminate you if you help anybody, but they were still hiding people. And I believe they were hiding people and protecting people and trying to smuggle people out of the country because they had that faith. Hey, the cleanliness of my soul, of my spirit, of who I am is more important than the fear of the current authorities, the current leadership, the current order.
Yeah. And that leads, I think, right into the poem that I titled Stake Your Claim.
Oof, here we go. Hit it with another level.
Yeah. So here it goes. Stake your claim. Sometimes finding your way means letting go of self-limiting beliefs. And when you let go, you will finally remember why you tread the path you tread. And when it gets hard, unfair, daunting, you will have the energy to keep going with joy and celebration, staking your claim in who you really are.
Let's hit it again. You know me, on the DJ with the poems.
Stake your claim. Sometimes finding your way means letting go of self-limiting beliefs. And when you let go, you will finally remember why you tread the path you tread. And when it gets hard, unfair, daunting, you will have the energy to keep going with joy and celebration, staking your claim in who you really are.
Love it. Love it. And look, I reckon let's just DJ poem on the decks here.
Okay. So next one, because I got two this week. So this one is Wayfinder. I imagine myself standing in the stars, observing my path. What would I notice if I were down there? It looks different from here. I need someone up there directing me down here. They can direct me through the parts that scare me until I find my why, helping me transform to who I am to be.
You know me, rewind, play.
Yeah. No, it's funny as I'm reading this, I'm even having a whole nother interpretation of it. So I just want to put that out there.
I love it. You know why that is?
Huh?
Do you know why that is?
Why?
Like you can read information or look at something and then it can hit you a different way at a different time.
Yeah, and I even wrote it, right? So that's what's really interesting is and
you're a different person in this moment.
Right, quite frequently because today, like the other day when I wrote it was like I was in the stars, literally me observing my own path, and wondering what I would notice and what I would say. And then, I thought, oh, I need someone, but that someone was also me in the stars. Like this is what I was thinking when I wrote it. And today I'm like, huh, is that the universe? Is that God? Is that the one being? Like, what do I mean when I need someone up there directing me down here? You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden it was like, oh, there's a whole nother possibility of what that means. And
Like
I
your
love
North
how I
Star as well.
yeah, and I gave the
Yeah.
responsibility, it's like, do I give that responsibility or am I in both places, right? Like, and how does that work? Just a very so I in some ways maybe super philosophical here to be tearing apart my own poem.
Hey, I'm down for it. I'm down for it. It's a great poem.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I think because there are so many things that scare us, right? Like you said, you moved from Sydney to Perth without much. You didn't have your business there. You didn't have anything there. You had to uproot, which changed everything. And I'm thinking that was a little scary.
Uh, yeah, it was scary 6 months in when I was trying all the ways of um, building business here, and so it wasn't scary at first. It was something new, and it was exciting, and it was like a whole new adventure. Then 6 months in, I was doing what I would do in Sydney to drum up new business, and it wasn't working here. And then I got told very early on, "Hey, if you're not born in Perth, you're not from Perth." I was like, "Excuse me?" And they're like, "You could be here 20 years and you're not from Perth. Like this place is like super clicky." And I was like, "Wow, that's interesting." And then I had someone to pull me aside and say, "Hey, do you want to connect with drone photographers?" I said, "Yeah, for sure. That would help." And I was doing a job like that a Sydney company had me doing in Perth, so that was the only like jobs that I had. And she took me to a network event, and then at the network event, all of a sudden, I just started doing business with people and meeting people and learning this whole world of networking. And which is, if you want to get anything done, really suggest hitting that world up. Um, and yeah, and so I kept doing that, and then I realized after a while I did an audit, and I went, "Wow, everybody that I've networked, that I've done business with," I was like, "They're not from here." Like next to none of them are from here. They're people that are from Kenya, are from China, are from you know India, are from from also from Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne. Like they're people that they're imports. They're not locals. So that was quite interesting. It was like, wow, you're doing business with a lot of people that aren't necessarily like born and bred here. Um, and so like my next move is to try and see how I can, pretend that I was born in Perth.
But okay, so you were scared, and then you meet these people. I mean,
I was scared.
how did you walk through that fear? What did you do?
Yeah, yeah. So I sat, you usually stand in the shower. I sat in the shower, turned the shower on, and cried. No, so no, yeah. I mean, I guess I wasn't getting anywhere, and I think deep down I knew that I had to change my approach. And I think if you can get this early on, when you know, hey, something's not working, and you know that time that you need to change your approach, because something might not be working because you haven't tried it, enough. Like there's plenty of things that haven't worked because, for instance, there was one client that I had who was a doctor, a GP, and he was wanting to take photographs of these products that he wanted to put on Amazon, and they were like whiskey and bread makers, like and whiskey like mixed like things. So it was totally out of out of what he was doing as a doctor. And he called me once, and then or he emailed me, like putting a thing on my website. Over the course of a year, I called him 17 times, and they weren't the same message. There were creative ways, different follow-ups, and had I not kept, trying that same similar approach and shifting it as I tried, different text, hey, just checking in, happy new year, whatever it is, sending a video message. if I hadn't kept trying that, I wouldn't have got the job that turned out to be him, photo and video, his wife. She also had products, photo and video, and then like both of them again for another round of shoots. So you just don't know what is there if you stop knocking on the door. And then I think the other thing is you have to change your approach if something isn't working. Okay, how do I meet the market?
Yeah, I'm just thinking what I think I'm hearing, I just want to clarify, is when scared, just keep doing what you know will like keep taking the next best step, which
Yep.
is
Yep.
whatever that is. And if you want customers, then maybe it's connection, but really looking at what do I want to do and how am I going to connect with those people?
Yeah, being scared is almost like a for me, it's kind of like it's like that getting out of your comfort zone sort of thing, right? It's like, oh, this is the right thing, like, oh, I'm doing something new. Well, I should feel scared. Like, crap. Like, I shouldn't be running and going, hey, I want to feel butterflies in my belly and my heart every step of the way, and just have a musical sing along every step. I think Disney or being Disneyfied has really messed a lot of people up in terms of what they think relationships are or should be. Their different roles, and also like what I think life. I guess social media maybe like what life really is. Success. You don't see the I'm terrified, I'm scared, but hey, that means this is the right. I'm making the right steps. Like
Mm-hmm.
like you're going to be scared before the first marathon you run. You're going to be scared before the first podcast you do. I mean, I could throw the question right back at you, like all the times that you
Yeah.
were scared. Like it's almost
Yeah.
like an alert. Hey, on your phone. Hey, you're heading towards the right destination.
Yeah.
Uh, new
Well, and
new
just
new
because my
pastures are
body's
scary.
right, and just because my body is doing whatever it's doing that's sending me signals that says, be scared, it doesn't mean I have to believe it.
Hmm.
Like, okay,
It could
so
be
that's a
alive.
feeling.
It could
Yeah.
be It could be saying, hey, like liven up.
Yeah.
Shiz
Like,
is about to
hey.
go down.
Or yesterday I was talking with one of my daughter's boyfriends, and it was a fantastic conversation. And he was talking about, we were talking about where in the last week he was happy, or the most happy, and it was he had solved a problem. And so then we got into talking about frustration, and at the end of the conversation, the conclusion basically was that, well, when he starts having that sense of frustration, that means he's almost there and the solution is there. So in order to find happiness, he actually needs to walk through that sense of frustration, and that sense of frustration actually ends up bringing him joy. And I thought that was a really neat journey in a conversation.
I love that
And
story.
I think it's true. Like,
Yeah.
I was so curious.
Well, this is why expectations, like if we think everything's going to be a Disney movie or a musical and like lullabies and birds tweeting by our side as we take every step of the way, and there's not going to be any like heartache or challenge. If we think that, and that's why I think the truth and being direct and just saying it how it is, and serving people up just with the truth. I always wanted that. I didn't want the fluffy, photoshopped or musical sort of thing. I'm just like, hit me with the truth, because I can do something with the truth. I'm in La La Land with the other stuff. So if I know, hey, a part of this book is going to be frustration, it's going to be pain, it's going to be pulling your hair out, it's going to be like, oh my God, am I going to get through it? And when I did hear that, and when I did hear other authors were going through that, it actually allowed me to pick the book back up. Where when I thought, oh, success is just waltzing and jogging through the foothills, singing to the music, I realized, like, if I thought that was the way it was, then none of us would really persevere. When we see that it's real, raw, and true, and people share that, it actually allows us to go, hey, this is a part of the process. This is a part of the cycle. Going to the gym sucks. doing this sucks, but the result doesn't suck. Not
Yeah.
doing it doesn't suck, but the result sucks. So
Yeah.
it's just that
The
realization.
result of not doing it sucks.
Yes.
Worse
Yes.
than the sucking of doing it.
Exactly. A whole lot of suck.
Yeah. So we're almost at time, and I don't think we've given homework. So I mean, there are so many questions in this chapter of your book. I'm tempted to say on this one, if you don't have the book yet, get the book.
Thanks, Angela. There are lots of questions, and I split them up into two parts. And the reason there's so many questions is because it's that deeper question, or that next question, or that question at that time that actually has life change properties.
Yeah.
Because how many times a day do you hear, oh, do this or do that or go this way, and we've got so much information, so much advice, so much terrible advice, so much terrible information, but also so much good information. But even though we've got it, like, you can search anything you ever wanted to create, be, do in your life on the internet. You've got millionaire, billionaire pieces of information, but like, we don't actually do things with it, and that's that execution point. And I think sometimes the right question hitting the nerve at the right time can create that execution. So probably what I'd say, yeah,
Get the
with
book.
Angela, get the book for sure. I'd say that. But if you want to get stuck in right away, it's about like asking yourself quality questions. And it's important to work out what those quality questions are. But asking yourself quality questions and not getting bored with, oh, I've already heard this, I've already watched this, I've already learned this, I've already tried this. It's like, no, ask it again and again. Because like you said with the poem, it hit you in a different way. Like, I'm a different person than I was yesterday. Like, we're different in each moment, and that's why we can listen to a book and suddenly something different hits our consciousness. We're evolved, we're transformed. Numbers that we can't even add up of our cells have died, and new cells have been born. So we are a different entity,
Yeah.
in the spiritual manifestation and physical manifestation. So look, if you want to make the exercise, get the book. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
stop that. But just, I'd say, ask yourself higher quality questions, deeper questions more often.
Yeah, and if you guys need some additional coaching on that, feel free to email us at thedestinyofyoursoul@gmail.com. Kyle and I do check in on that email regularly. So with that, this is the Destiny of Your Soul. I'm Angela Talent. This is Kyle Spirides, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.